Dynasty fantasy football is truly for the diehards. Some of us are starting a league this year. Some have been doing it for decades. What's true for all players, though, is there's a general list of best practices. Here's just a few we came up with, and hopefully this can help you win your leagues in 2025 and beyond. For one, you've got to pay attention to age. Go for youth here. This kind of seems like the core principle in Dynasty fantasy football, but here it is, right? If the most talented player on the board and your first draft up is up for grabs and they happen to be 29, sure, go for it. But this is just like managing an NFL team. It's exactly like managing an NFL team. When you draft year over year, you're going to be going for rookies, but in the first draft, it's a free-for-all. You're setting your roster up. If you don't want to be swinging trades and relying on the waiver wire all the time, get guys in their low to mid-20s who you see upside in. Jackson Smith and Jigba, perfect case study. Even before his last season, we saw promise. He just wasn't getting his opportunity. But Tyler Lockett was on the wrong side of 30. Those DK Metcalf trade rumors began to heat up, and it became increasingly apparent that this would be JSN's wide receiver room before we knew it. And here we are in making this video in late March of 2025. DK is a Steeler. JSN has this wide receiver room all to himself with Jake Bobo as his second fiddle at the time. Consistency is key. Now, this one's pretty translatable across redraft leagues and dynasty leagues, but because the hope is to build and keep the same core around for years, look for guys who are always around the same area. I would much rather have taken a bet on Mike Evans these past 10 years than Cooper Kupp once we realized his landscape was, outside of his 1,900-yard season, extremely inconsistent. Don't go chasing a player who's had one amazing year but can't stay healthy, hasn't consistently gotten the opportunity, or some underlying issue in between that's preventing them from being productive fantasy players. This goes back to the core values of fantasy football in general on this channel. Availability, are they playing? Opportunity, are they getting the ball? Productivity, what are they doing with the ball? And we could go on and on and on about that, but in general, those are the three components that you want to look for that would lead to consistency over a long period of time. Rushing quarterbacks for the win. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. You know what that group has in common? They run the ball a decent amount, and it's no coincidence that two of those three names have been top 10 quarterbacks in a standard fantasy format in each of the last 5 years. Sometimes two of them even get in the top 5 altogether. If you can't get one of them, that's fine. Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, and other quarterbacks who have that mobile element will be of benefit. Most point-scoring formats will give you a point for every 10 rushing yards, and that same value, 1 point, for every 25 passing yards. You are gaining points at 2.5 times the rate as a traditional pocket passer, and the margin for error changes a little bit, right? You've seen so many times where Jalen Hurts turns the ball over a couple times, has a couple picks, has a lost fumble, but he has 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns that also count for 6 points, as opposed to passing touchdowns that only count for 4. Make it easy on yourself. Get a mobile quarterback. There's plenty of them out there. Pass-catching running backs, you want to prioritize these guys. Now, this might seem like a no-brainer, but I bring this up in Dynasty because having this element can impact snaps. We are in a day and age right now in 2025 where so many running back rooms are by committee or at the very least a 2-platoon system, different teams playing to their players' strengths. You've got your bruiser in short yardage, goal-to-go situations, and then you have your speedster on the outside. Think like Jahmyr Gibbs versus an old-school Jerome Bettis. It seems like almost every team is operating with that committee approach, though. Thunder and Lightning. 5 of the top 6 running backs in standard PPR had at least 40 targets this year. Derrick Henry was the exception, as he usually is. If someone's able to do both run and catch to be a versatile option on the ground, it helps in establishing that player as a top back, hopefully for years to come. Again, running backs have a shorter shelf life, but if they can catch passes and kind of do it all, still be that 3-down back with also a receiving element, that is a plus for you. And last but certainly not least, team environment fit. You could go so many different directions with this, but this matters for any position. Let's give you an example for running backs. We were just talking about them. Running backs on winning football teams is a layup. 7 of the top 10 backs in fantasy this past year were on winning football teams, and 2 of the 3 that were not on winning programs in that top 10 for fantasy were on teams that went 8 and 9. Those backs are getting the ball in the fourth quarter to run out the clock when they're up. Wide receiver ones on pass-heavy programs. Now, be careful if it's a bad offense and they're throwing it a lot. That doesn't exactly mean that even though that wide receiver one's getting a lot of targets, they're going to convert a whole lot. But think Dallas Cowboys, right? Defense was bruised up this year. Offense had to score 1 million points to compete, and CeeDee Lamb was reaping in the benefits. So be a little careful with that one. Quarterbacks behind decent offensive lines. I think the main lesson here is look around your players, see what environment they're in, and then play to those advantages. But running backs on winning football teams are a layup. Wide receivers on competent offenses that sometimes have to get in shootouts. I mean, to be really simple, right? Just look at points per game for the entire team. Those are good as well. And then defense, kickers, those are kind of their own animals, right? But run, pass, look for records, look for run-pass ratio, and kind of start to understand the environment that each of these players live in. All right, those are 5 do's for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Maybe we'll do some red flags going forward, strategies to avoid. But I'm Corey, here to help you on Armchair Fantasy Football, even if we're a little injured here. That's the wrong eye. It's this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. Leave a comment if you have a video suggestion for the future. And since it's the off season, we're a little more flexible. We'll be able to honor it. And we will see you in the next video.